I have seen so many people question whether they should be on Camp Agatha or Camp Penguin, whether they should spend their time watching a whimsical and witchy show or a gritty, self-serious show. And they are on opposite sides of the comic book world, yet people would still find a way to make them compete no matter what circumstances surround them. But everyone clambering over one another to prove the other side wrong is pointless when it's possible to just enjoy the two amazing shows we currently have. Welcome to Sandwich Reviews. I'm the Talking Sentient Sandwich, and I see no reason to decide which is better. They're apples and oranges, and they're both great. And I've talked about before how I've personally been able to set aside enough time to watch and read all of the exponentially growing superhero stuff, but that doesn't even have to apply to this dilemma. It's really not that much of an issue to tune into two different shows at once. I could probably make enough time to do that in a single day, let alone spaced out over a week. And that's especially easy when the shows that I'm talking about are so entertaining. There should be no need to limit our options and choose one. I can understand the competition mindset, wanting to rank and compare everything that comes out, but that mentality is dangerous and ridiculous. It's the same old argument of Marvel versus DC, with plenty of fans, uninterested onlookers, and even creators who see it as some sort of competition. And I love comics, yet when I'm reading them, I am most interested in stories that are just good. Marvel and DC will always hold my interest because, like any fanboy, the properties I have followed since childhood will always be easier to get into, despite sometimes not being the best out there. Of course, if I had to choose, it would be DC, because I will always be a diehard fan of their trinity. And I grew up on Batman the Animated Series and its many spin-offs. But that doesn't change the fact that I also read plenty of other comics while I'm at it. And comics in general are constantly a convoluted mess, which has motivated me more and more nowadays to just read the isolated stories that have gotten good word of mouth. That could mean Marvel, DC, Image, or any of the other smaller comic publishing houses. But before I leave the world of comics, there's one more recent comparison that I have to point out, because there's the similarly needless question going around right now about whether you should read DC's Absolute stories or Marvel's Return of the Ultimate Universe. And I'm sorry, but I just don't get that. If everything is going right and both sides are entertaining enough to keep me invested, awesome. That means I am lucky enough to be able to enjoy two different properties. Which brings us back to Agatha versus the Penguin. Fun, heartfelt, sapphic whimsy versus gritty and serious. And yet again, I should never have to decide, because I'm loving both. And I don't want to compare the two in the first place because they are compelling in different ways. Apples and oranges. I'll have a review out for each a little after they wrap up, and I'll dive into exactly what I liked in those. But for now, all I gotta say is just how riveting they are. But especially when these shows are incredible, more and more people come out of the woodwork to go to bat for it. Anyone criticizing it, whether that criticism has actual grounding and justification or not, those diehard fans will not stand for it and defend it from any negative judgment. And believe me, if there's a show that I'm enjoying, not even loving, and people are hating on it for no good reason, that makes my blood boil and sends me down a rabbit hole of attempting to shield the property, the writers, and the actors from terrible fans, knowing full well I have absolutely zero impact on the situation. But regardless of what happens to me when I feel like defending a show, fandoms and fans will always find a way to make everything compete. Similar to them defending a property they love from criticism, the most extreme fans will not stand for any other project to be considered better or even sometimes as good. And this is only the rarest of extreme fans, a very small portion of the nerd crowd, but sadly, they are the loudest. And I've seen people like that get offended if someone just wants to enjoy something else as well, as if that's an attack on the property they've claimed as their own. And to that, I say, shape your personality around a nerdy property all you like, but don't stop other people from trying to be fans, or try to claim that you're a bigger fan, and therefore better. Let's just let everyone like what they want to like. But bringing the conversation back around to two things duking it out for a non-existent dominance, I want to quickly mention a couple phenomenal animated movies. Because recently, we got The Wild Robot and Transformers 1. And it was that same competitive mindset where, for some reason, I got it in my head that one of them needed to be better than the other. And after a day of going back and forth, I came to the epiphany that I should have come to at the very beginning, that they're both incredible, and I should consider myself lucky that I was fortunate enough to be able to experience them. And all of these examples boil down to one analogy, one which I cannot take credit for because I saw this years ago on Twitter and have completely forgotten the person who originally said it, so I also can't really cite them. Sorry, dude. But when someone actively complains about one of these shows being better than the other, or that one is a waste of time, which they often say without even seeing it, but that will always just make me question why in the world they're grumbling in the first place. My guy, we got 2 delicious cakes right in front of us. Just sit down and eat, and we're gonna have a good time. But what are your thoughts on the topic of Agatha versus the Penguin, or Marvel versus DC as a whole? I know I just spent the whole time talking about how it's unnecessary and sometimes even dangerous to have to choose between 2 things that are great in different ways, but screw it. If you had to decide, which would it be? Drop a comment and let me know. And as always, thanks for watching. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe for weekly video essays and reviews, and enjoy a delicious sandwich.